We finally made it. The week we've all been waiting for a long, long time, since January. Week 1 of the 2025 college football season. And there's a phrase, a sentence, I'll bet you'd never heard before. Baylor is Auburn with a river. That's today's topic here on Scarbo Knows. I'm Kevin Scarbinsky. We're going to dive into the opener for the Tigers and the Bears. And first, we're going to say thank you to our sponsor, Money Management Services, right here in Birmingham, Alabama, a family-owned, fee-only financial services company. The Rice family has been in business for a long time because they've taken great care of their customers. They will take great care of you. So give them a call. You'll be glad you did. Click on the QR code there on the screen. All right, so we have to talk about Auburn and Baylor. You know, it's rare to say, you normally wouldn't say that the first game of any season is a must-win. But in this case, we might have to make an exception for Hugh Freeze and the Tigers. And what's really interesting to me about this matchup, well, there are a lot of interesting aspects to it. But one thing in particular is these two teams, in a sense, it's like looking in a mirror. And we're going to get into some of the particulars there, but let's look at some numbers to support what I'm talking about. Now, we can get beyond the fact that these are two very conservative schools in different parts of the country. Baylor, of course, is a religious school of a sort, I guess you would say. Auburn is not. Auburn is a public institution, but there is obviously, if you read the Twitter timeline of Bruce Pearl, just to use one example, it's a very conservative school as well. But I was fascinated. I went back and looked at the numbers for these two schools over the last 12 years. Now, I know if I was going to cut it off at 2014 or start at 2014, which was the first year of the college football playoff, but I know if I did that, Auburn fans would howl and say, wait a minute, you're eliminating 2013, the year Auburn went from worst to almost first in the country and came up 13 seconds short of a national championship. So I said, okay, I will include that to be fair to Auburn. But also, if you remember Art Briles, and that's a whole nother story, the debacle that Baylor football became in many ways under him, the highest highs and the lowest lows in different ways. They went 11-2 in 2013, while Auburn went 12-2. So it didn't really give Auburn that much of an edge. But look at the numbers. Overall, they have almost an identical record since 2013. One game advantage to Auburn in the win column, and the Tigers also have one more defeat. So that's really a wash if you're comparing these programs over the last dozen years. In conference, decided advantage for Baylor. They're plus 10. Auburn, a straight 49-49 in the SEC since 2013. Not good, Bob. Not good. And then if you look at their record in bowls or BCS championship games, there's only one of those BCS championship games in there, and that was Auburn in the last one, losing to Florida State after the 2013 season. But that's another advantage for Baylor. The Bears 4-5 in the postseason. In this stretch, Auburn 2-8. And Baylor has won a postseason game, won a bowl game back in 2021. Auburn has not won one in a much longer span of time. Conference titles in this range of years, 3 for Baylor in the Big 12, only 1 for Auburn. Auburn, of course, played for one in 2017, came up short against Georgia because Kerryon Johnson was hurt, their best player, and wasn't able to be very effective or go very long or very hard. And that basically eliminated Auburn from being competitive in that game. Baylor's won 3 Big 12 titles in that stretch. the last one in 2021 under their current coach, Dave Aranda. And here's another edge for the Bears in 10-win seasons. They've had 4 of them in the last 12 years. Auburn has had only 2, as we all remember, as we've said. 2013, they went 12-2, played for the national championship, came up achingly short. You cannot award yourself that one. 9-time national champion Auburn. And then 2017, Auburn had a 10-win season, won the SEC West, beat number 1 Georgia, turned around and beat number 1 Alabama, and then with a wounded roster, lost to Georgia in the SEC championship game, and then allowed Central Florida to declare itself national champions by losing to the Knights in the Peach Bowl, I believe it was. So that was a 10-win season for Auburn in 2017, the last one for the Tigers. So if you're looking at this, you might, based on history, the entirety of both programs, you might say, well, Auburn, clearly a top 15 program all time, 9 national championships, et cetera, et cetera. You would give Auburn an edge in this matchup just based on history and tradition. Heisman Trophy winners, Pat Sullivan, Bo Jackson, Cam Newton, national championships. But in the most recent era, the last 12 years, Auburn has not been a better football program than Baylor based on these numbers. Now, does that mean anything in 2025? Does it mean anything on Friday night in Waco, Texas? This blackout on the Brazos, the river that runs through Waco, Texas, the home of Baylor University? Not necessarily. Let's look at the coaching matchup. This is really fascinating because you've got 2 guys who are mirror images of one another, if you will. Dave Aranda, known for his defensive prowess. He was, of course, the defensive coordinator at LSU when they won that 2019 national championship with Joe Burrow and company. Everybody focused on the offense. The defense was pretty stout as well. And then he took the Baylor job in 2020. And Hugh Freeze, of course, he's known as an offensive guru. He hasn't been that in his 2 years at Auburn. Part of that, a big part of that, is personnel. Maybe some confusion on the coaching staff, who's calling the plays, who's designing the offense in the week leading up to the games. But Hugh Freeze is the main play caller at Auburn. Let's not get it twisted. He's the guy in charge. And Dave Aranda, interestingly, took over the play calling on the Baylor defense before last year. When he first became the head coach there, he thought, as Hugh Freeze did when he got to Auburn a couple of years ago, that he needed to focus on running the overall program. He didn't need to be buried in the details of game planning and play calling on the defensive side of the ball, even though that is his area of expertise. And that's the reason he got the Baylor job, because of the great work he did as a defensive coordinator for so many years. So he decided to focus on being a head coach. 2020 is a wash. They went 2-7. Again, COVID year. You can eliminate that one. Had a great year in 2021 and then struggled a little bit since then. Had a great finish last year. They won their last 6 regular season games. But look at these numbers. What's the definition of mediocrity? Look at the numbers that are circled. Dave Aranda's overall record as a head coach at Baylor in 5 years, 31-30. Look at Hugh Freeze's conference record in 12 years as a head coach, 32-32. You can't define mediocrity any better than those numbers. Now, in fairness to Hugh Freeze, when he was at Liberty, he did a nice job there. They were an independent. They were not in a conference, so he didn't have the opportunity to win a bunch of conference games, which I'm guessing he would have given the job he did there. But at Arkansas State, where he won a conference championship, his only conference title, as you note below, each of these coaches has won conference championship. Dave Aranda at Baylor, Hugh Freeze in his first year as a major college coach at Arkansas State. So this is an important game, and Hugh Freeze has more 10-win seasons. He's had more opportunities. Again, he's coached 12 years as a head coach in the Football Bowl subdivision. Dave Aranda, only 5. So these are both coaches with something to prove. And I would suggest to you, I would suggest to Hugh Freeze. I would suggest to John Cohen. I would suggest to the most passionate Auburn fans I know that this is as close to a must-win as it gets for a head coach in the game opener, in the season opener in game one. Now, if Auburn goes to Waco, Texas, and Jackson Arnold struggles, or he and Hugh Freeze as a play caller and a quarterback are not on the same page, or Jackson Arnold and Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton, and those incredible receivers that Auburn has, they're not on the same page, or something goes wrong, a fluke strip sack here, a tipped interception there, Baylor gets the lead, they're going to have a sellout crowd, it's a blackout there. As I said, it's the blackout on the Brazos, they're calling it. And by the way, let's hope it's not a blackout on YouTube TV. I'm guessing many of you are aware that why this happens every year when football is about to start, I do not know. Maybe someone can explain this to me. But there is a carriage dispute between Fox Sports and YouTube TV, which I happen to subscribe to. And if they don't resolve it by the end of the day on Wednesday, according to them, you may not see Fox Sports on your television this weekend, which would be a disaster for college football fans because the Auburn-Baylor game is on Fox. The Texas at Ohio on Friday night, the Texas at Ohio State game on Saturday morning, the big noon kickoff, 11 a.m. Central Time, is on Fox. I can't imagine that they won't come to terms, but this is maddening. It happens this year every time, every year at this time, with some network and some carrier. They can't get their act together, so it goes down to the wire. They make a lot of people sweat, and then they come to terms, and we get the games that we want to see. So hopefully that will be resolved. And one more issue on the television front in this game that's gotten a little bit of play. The analyst for Fox Sports is Robert Griffin III, who, of course, played for Baylor, had an outstanding career at Baylor, won the Heisman Trophy in 2011. There's a good trivia question for you. Who won the Heisman in between Cam Newton at Auburn in 2010 and Johnny Manziel at Texas A&M in 2012? It was RG3, and he was terrific for the Bears at that time. This has riled up a few Auburn fans for reasons I'm not sure I fully understand. Do you really think RG3 is going to be in there waving green and gold pom-poms? Do you really think he's not going to give Jackson Arnold credit if he has a great game, if he looks like a new man with his new teammates and new coaching staff at Auburn? No, of course he won't. He's a professional. Whether you like his personal feelings about different issues, whether you like him as a person or not, some people don't. From my experience, he's a professional when it comes to being behind a microphone as the analyst at a college football game. He's also a little quirky, a little different. So I think he brings a little flavor to the broadcast that other analysts don't. So I'm looking forward to hearing him on that game. And I think he'll call it straight, and I think he'll give credit where credit is due, whether it's to Baylor, whether it's to Auburn, and it will be to both sides at different times in the game. So again, those are asides. But these coaches look very similar, and really, this is the game within the game. It's going to be Hugh Freeze trying to match wits with Dave Aranda and vice versa. And another thing to look for in this game, and this was a really good analytical story, Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, he visited with Dave Aranda in Waco. And he was told, Dave Aranda shared with him that he had been too simplistic a year ago in calling plays for his defense, that he didn't want to put too much on his players. He wanted them to play fast and free and not be in their heads too much. So he didn't give them a lot of calls. He didn't give them a lot of sets on the defensive side. And he thought it hurt Baylor. And if you go back and look at their 6-game win streak to close last season, when the Bears were very good, it was chiefly on the production of their offense. They won a bunch of shootouts. They didn't play the kind of defense that Dave Aranda is used to having his teams play. So he has gotten more sophisticated this year. He's adding more looks to his defense. He's adding more calls to his defensive play sheet. So this is going to be fascinating because, again, you've got a new operation for Auburn. It's not new from the coaching staff perspective. Hugh Freeze, Derek Nix, his offensive coordinator, Kent Austin, the quarterback's coach, they're all involved in the discussions. Hugh Freeze is the main play caller, but you got a new quarterback. And that new quarterback has something to prove. That new quarterback had a confidence problem coming out of Oklahoma. And Auburn has done everything possible to try to build up Jackson Arnold's confidence, to the point that, especially in the spring, and Hugh Freeze admitted it, and it caused a bit of an uproar in this state, that the most important thing of every practice was for the quarterback to walk off the field feeling good about himself. I've never heard a coach say that before. So it made people wonder, are they fully preparing Jackson Arnold for what he's going to face in a place like Waco, Texas? Now, this is not Bryant-Denny Stadium. This is not Sanford Stadium. This is not going to be 90, 100,000 people screaming at him, making it difficult to communicate for the Auburn offense. But it will be an intense, on-the-road, national television audience experience for Jackson Arnold. He's got playmakers, especially on the outside. He's got an improved offensive line, better than what he had at Oklahoma last year, better than what Auburn trotted out there last year. But in many ways, this game is going to come down to the quarterbacks. So let's look at a quarterback comparison of last season. The numbers for Sawyer Robertson for Baylor and Jackson Arnold when he was at Oklahoma. And again, huge asterisk there. So you have to take these numbers with a grain of salt when you're looking at Jackson Arnold. It's a bit unfair, but it's what we have to go on. Sawyer Robertson wasn't the starter when last season began for Baylor. He took over a few games into the season, and he performed very, very well. But if you look at it, his completion percentage, about equal to Jackson Arnold. He threw for a lot more yards. He threw a lot more passes. Obviously had more completions. His touchdown to interception ratio, far superior. And his efficiency number, really, really high compared to Jackson Arnold. But I'm not sure. Now, Sawyer Robertson, again, and they've got a lot of production back, Baylor does. That's the advantage that they have. They have their quarterback returning. He's a veteran. He's a redshirt senior. Did you know, I bet a lot of you have forgotten this if you did know it, that Sawyer Robertson started his college career. He's from Texas, played high school football in Texas, but he played for Mike Leach at Mississippi State. Never really won the job there. He got a cup of coffee back in 2022. He was there 2021, 2022. Got a little bit of action in 2022, but never won the job, never took over there. So if Mike Leach thinks you can play, that tells you something. And Sawyer Robertson had an excellent year last year. Phil Steele has picked him preseason as the Big 12 quarterback of the year, which says something because there are some quality quarterbacks in that league. So this is the game within the game as well. Which quarterback performs at a higher level? Which quarterback can keep his poise when something goes wrong? And this is the question about Jackson Arnold that everyone wants to see answered. How does he handle it when he makes a mistake? He's going to make mistakes. So Sawyer Robertson. Every quarterback in America is going to make mistakes, including Arch Manning. And by the way, there's a fantastic new podcast on the Auburn 24/7 Sports channel with Terry Bowden, the Terry Bowden Show. Had its debut last night. And Terry Bowden had a great quote about Arch Manning, talking about the legacy, talking about the name, talking about what that means to have good genes. And Terry Bowden said, well, look, Arch Manning has all the right stuff to be a great quarterback. But Terry Bowden said, I'm a Bowden, but I'm not Bobby Bowden. And that is the best description, the best possible way to look at Arch Manning going into this season. He's a Manning, but until further notice, he's not Eli Manning, he's not Peyton Manning, and he's not Archie Manning. So let him be who he is. And we'll see if he's up to the task of being the next great Manning as a quarterback in college football. It remains to be seen. But Sawyer Robertson has proven himself. He had a terrific season last year for Baylor. He got better and better, and you saw the progression as the season went along. As I said, they won their last 6 regular season games. They lost to LSU in the bowl game. No shame there. But the guy can play. But Jackson Arnold has had moments as well. Ask Alabama what Jackson Arnold is capable of if you neglect him in the running game. And that's going to be another fascinating thing to watch on Friday night. How much does Auburn run Jackson Arnold with designed run calls? How much in the RPO game does he throw it? Does he hand it off? Does he pull it down and run it himself? How much is he forced to run for his life and make something out of nothing? He's capable of doing all of those things. He's had flashes, and especially in that Alabama game last year, he ran for over 150 yards when Oklahoma beat Alabama and knocked him out of the playoff late in the season. So everyone wants to see who is the real Jackson Arnold. Will the real Jackson Arnold please stand up? He better do it on Friday night, because if Auburn gets the kind of inconsistent quarterback play it's gotten the last several years, Auburn's going to walk out of there 0-1. But if Jackson Arnold can be what Hugh Freeze and his teammates think he can be, then Auburn is going to walk away with a very, very important victory. And why is this game so important? Why do I say it's as close to a must-win as you can have in game one? Well, look at the last 2 years of Auburn football under Hugh Freeze. 2 losing seasons, wildly inconsistent, lost games you thought they should win, in addition to games they were supposed to lose. So is this a new year? I'm hearing a lot of Auburn love from the national media. Andy Staples on his podcast loves Auburn. Ari Wasserman, his co-host on their podcast, Andy and Ari. I listened to them yesterday. They were so high on Auburn, I thought, what am I missing? I'm not ready to say that Auburn's going to go 10-2. Rob Brown on the Sidelines Live Sports Network he's an Auburn guy, but he also calls it like he sees it, and he is convinced Auburn's going to win 10 games. I've got to see it to believe it. But I will say this. If Auburn doesn't win at least 8 games this season will be a failure. Unless there's a rash of injuries, unless they lose 2 of their 3 quarterbacks, and they do have other quarterbacks. Another thing to watch on Friday night. Does Ashton Daniels from Stanford have a package where he gets in the game? Does Deuce Knight, the heralded 5-star freshman, the left-handed gunslinger, does he have a package of plays? Do we see all 3 quarterbacks, something Dave Aranda's had to prepare for and spend time on in camp and game week? That's a whole card that Hugh Freeze may be able to play if necessary. But unless something goes really, really wrong, especially on the injury front, unless there's some controversy we don't see coming, which is always a possibility at Auburn, of course, given its history. But if all things are equal, Auburn should go at least 8-4 this year. And anything less will be a negative referendum on Hugh Freeze's ability to get that program where it wants to be. And I will say this too, and I haven't heard it put in this way. We had a lot of discussion. I talked about it on a show last week about Auburn not declaring itself, claiming. Others named Auburn national champions for the years in question, but Auburn now claims 9 national titles. By doing so, you brought a lot of attention to the program. By doing so, you raised expectations, because if you are a program that owns 9 national championships, you cannot have another losing season. You cannot extend your losing streak to Alabama to 6 games. You cannot extend your losing streak to Georgia all the way back to 2017. That goes back to 2017 in the SEC championship game. Auburn beat Georgia in the regular season that year. Last time the Tigers beat the Bulldogs in the Deep South's oldest rivalry. If you claim 9 national championships, you've got to act like a championship program. And it's been far too long since Auburn played in the SEC championship game, 2017. It's been far too long since Auburn won the SEC championship game, 2013. I'm not predicting Auburn to do either of those things this year, but you have to see progress. The hope has to translate to the scoreboard. The recruiting classes have to translate to big plays in big moments. That's what we want to see from Auburn football this year. So who wins this game? If you know me, you know I hate predictions. It's one of my least favorite things about being a member of the sports media for as long as I've been. It's making predictions. Because what's one of the thing to me that we love about college football? Yes, we can predict with fairly good accuracy a handful of teams or so that are going to be in contention for a national championship. 19 of the last 21 national champions were ranked in the top 7 in the preseason AP poll. That's a really strong sample size. 19 of the last 21. So, that's fairly predictable. But along the way to a somewhat predictable finish, a lot of unpredictable things are going to happen. That's why we're so excited about week 1. That's why we can't wait to get to Friday night in Waco and Saturday in Columbus, Ohio, and Tallahassee, Florida, when Alabama goes to play FSU, and Clemson, South Carolina, where LSU will try to win an opener for the first time in memory against Clemson. Won't be easy. Because that unpredictability, because we just don't know. The more we think we know, the more we don't know. So who's going to win the Auburn-Baylor game? I'm going to go against my philosophy. I'm going to go against my own best inclinations. I'm going to make a prediction. So who wins? Let them see it, Brendan. Are Auburn fans going to be happy? Or are they going to be sad on Friday night? Are they going to think it's more of the same? Or are they going to believe that this is the year that things change? I'm going with this is the year things change, at least to start. I think it's going to be as close as the line has been. Started out with Baylor favored. Now it's Auburn favored, but it stayed in a pretty narrow margin there within 2.5. I think Auburn's going to find a way, and it's going to win that game. But notice, I have Auburn winning 28-27. I think Cam Coleman is going to be the difference. I think he's going to catch the winning touchdown pass. I've got Auburn scoring 4 touchdowns. One thing to watch, Alex McPherson, the outstanding kicker for Auburn, outstanding kicker 2 years ago, was ill with stomach issues, very serious stomach issues last year, missed the season, and Auburn was not good in the kicking game last year. McPherson is still having some health issues. We don't know if he's going to kick Friday night. We don't know that he's not going to. Hugh Freeze has been a little vague on the subject, which is understandable. So if it comes down to a kicking contest, that may be advantage Baylor. But if it comes down to an overall talent contest, if it comes down to a big player making a big play contest, I'm going to lean towards Cam Coleman and Jackson Arnold getting the confidence that he's been missing. And if it doesn't turn out that way, you don't know me. All right, that's all for today. I'm Kevin Scarbinsky. This is Scarbo Knows. Make sure you check out our sponsor, Money Management Services here in Birmingham. Family-owned, fee-only financial services, the best around, the Rice family. Give them a call. You'll be glad you did. That's it from me. See ya.
Since 1992, Money Management Services in Birmingham has provided individuals and business owners with trusted, fee-only financial advice. We're more than advisors, we're your financial family. From retirement planning to tax strategies and estate planning, our team builds personalized wealth management plans tailored to your life. At Money Management Services, we treat you like family because when you walk through our doors, you become part of ours.